And I looked back to see what the number one song was, which I will have them it be the song of this. It was "I'm Sorry" by John Denver.
Oh, what a nice song.
I guess so. It's thanks.
Thinking about you almost every day. Thinking about the good times, thinking about the rain, thinking about how bad it feels alone again.
Welcome to the 3% Podcast. This is Chad Post from Open Letter Books with Tom Roberts from Albertine and New Directions. And we're back after a week off to talk about banned books and banned book week and a couple other things. One thing that I wanted to ask you about, there are two things that came out on Publishers Weekly this morning that I thought were kind of interesting and I thought I wanted to get your take on. And they're related in a way. One was that Oyster, the ebook subscription service that existed, is shutting down, so they're no longer going to exist. I think most of their employees are moving over to work for Google. Weirdly, and then the other one is that there's this new thing from Molly Barton, who used to work at Penguin Random House, called Cereal Box. Have you heard of this? Where
no.
I feel like I already know your hot take on both of these, but I'm just going to pursue this anyways. So Cereal Box is set up where they want to be called the HBO for books, where it's going to be episodic sort of literature, where each book or series is going to run for 13 to 16 episodes with multiple writers for each one. So there's one called Book Burners, a paranormal crime story written by 5 people, and the next one is Tremontaine, I guess, a swashbuckling 13-episode love and adventure series written by 6 people. And the idea is that each episode costs you $2, and you get that downloaded to your app, your Cereal Box app, to read as if it's more like a TV show where you wait for each next episode. It's back to the serializing of books. So I wondered if you have ever used or would use any of these ebook subscription things, and what you think of this Cereal Box deal.
Well, so Oyster was the one that was supposed to be like Netflix, yes?
Yeah, and so is Scribd. And weirdly, I subscribe to Scribd. I just started, actually.
What has your experience been?
Mostly, I did it because there are a few things I wanted to get, and you had a month-long free subscription, and they're all audiobooks. So since there's a bunch of audiobooks on there that I could just listen to for free that weren't available through my library, I've listened to a few things on there like that, like the Ta-Nehisi Coates book. And that was totally fine. There's a lot of books on there that I do want to read that I can't get through the library and I don't want to buy. So it seems like I'm probably going to use it a bit. I don't know about reading on my phone. I haven't tried that part yet. I've been just mostly listening to the ebooks. But there's a ton of stuff on there, and it seems okay for that cost. They did change, I should say this for anyone who actually is a subscriber as well, would know this, that as of yesterday, they changed their audiobook feature where it's not unlimited for all the audiobooks. It is for some of them, and for others, you get 1 credit a month to download them. But before it switched over, I downloaded like 8 of them onto my phone, and those all still work. So fuck their system.
This is not a thing for me. I don't know why. Just can't imagine. I don't do audiobooks, so that sort of eliminates it. But I don't know. I don't really like... I don't know. I feel like there's limited content in each of these things because, getting everyone on board is, pretty much impossible. And, you and I both sort of read things that are outside the mainstream. It's not that we don't, but, the vast majority are things published by small publishers who are distributed by large publishers often. But, I don't think when you go to Random House, when these people go to Random House, they don't automatically sign up Melville House and New York Review of Books and everybody else automatically. I think they have to go one by one.
For Scribd, New York Review of Books is on here.
So they must have gone to them. But is everything by New York Review of Books on there?
Give me a name of a title that I can search for.
Just look for Fatal. Is it on there?
No.
No. See?
All the Deep Vellum, all of the consortium books are on here, I think.
That's interesting.
Because I saw that there were various... What's that?
So all of yours are?
I believe so. At least some of them are, because I saw one of them.
I don't know. I feel like these things are always doomed to failure because
Yeah, Physics of Sorrow is on here, so our books are on here.
These things are always doomed to failure because people are used to free content. I don't know that they're going to like the idea of paying for things. When like, not to jump ahead too much, but to the Serial thing, the reason the Serial podcast took off, it's free. They pay for it with grants through public arts funding and, to produce it. And then there's advertising that sort of, allows it to keep going. They're not doing, like, the Serial box thing doesn't, like, you're just paying for it. I don't know. It's not, and, when people talk about, bringing back the serialized novel thing, a lot of those were done within larger publications that people already subscribed to. So they weren't paying specifically for, the Charles Dickens piece. It just kind of came in their newspaper, right? Or I'm trying to think of novels that have been serialized, but, Hunter S. Thompson, or I think Dennis Johnson not long ago had one. They were already in the Parish Review, already in Rolling Stone. So people I don't know that people would have gone out of their way to pay for just a serialized version of these things if it weren't already included in their subscription for the thing they already liked.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Serial Box one is less interesting to me. But I do think that there's something about, I think it's interesting that everyone's trying to do this, like trying to make it like TV or like the podcast or like a comic book or like anything that's like based on one thing coming out every X period of time instead of the full book all at once.
Which, I mean, do you know anyone who reads like that?
No, I think that people just would rather watch TV.
Yes, I think that's it. And in a more, in a bigger sort of cultural conversation, books are never going to capture the imagination the way TV does. That's just a reality. I'm sorry. And, when people talk about, we've talked about this before, a best-selling book is a couple thousand purchases a week,
Yeah.
How many people watch even a bad season 2 of True Detective every week?
It was a few million, wasn't it?
How many?
I was going to say at least 3 million.
Yeah.
But I might be wrong about that.
And that requires a subscription to HBO, which doesn't come with most people's cable service. Yeah. But they're getting a lot more beyond just True Detective. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like,
right.
They're happy that True Detective is part of whatever they're paying for, but I don't know that people would pay for it specifically. That said, people do pay for individual episodes, but I don't know. I feel like people are getting something they know of already. It's hard with books to really suck people in to a product they can't quite envision. Do you know what I mean? Like with TV, you get trailers, you
They did say that the first episode will be available for free for each one of their things.
Well, that's a smart thing. That is definitely a smart thing.
Yeah, I agree. So someone could test it. It's weird. One of the things that bothers me most, I mean, it wouldn't work for anything, but like the idea of having multiple writers writing the books is weird. I guess it's just to make it more like a TV show where there's like a showrunner and like then everyone's like contributing to it or whatever. But
has that ever worked
for a novel? I doubt it. I mean, it would within other forms of media. But that's why it's probably so pulpy sounding, like a swashbuckling adventure of love and a paranormal romance or mystery.
Yeah, it's plot based.
Okay, the final episode of True Detective was 2.73 million viewers.
That's for season 2.
Yep.
Yeah. Season 1 must have had double that, I'm guessing. But it was just such a bigger phenomenon. The other thing about the TV thing is people will go back and watch it over and over, years from now. So
because it's easy.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything. 11 million.
Wow. Jesus.
Wait a second. Let me make sure that's right. That's like half of the article and it pulled up. No. The series finale was 3.5 million.
Huh. But how many people have watched it? I mean, I didn't watch it in real time. I watched it only months later. So
I know they do include some of that for like how they incorporate into the Nielsen ratings and all that stuff, like post live viewership, both like on demand, but also like things that they sell through iTunes or whatever. Not that HBO does that, but they do include that to some degree. So. Yeah, the 11.4 million, weirdly enough, was 6 Feet Under's finale. Was 11.4 million. That's where that number popped up.
So True Detective was on what channel? Showtime?
No, it was on HBO as well.
Oh.
That's right. This True Detective, the season finale. This makes no sense. Yeah. But yeah, they had across the season a gross audience of 11 million viewers to date. True Detective became HBO's most watched freshman series since 6 Feet Under.
There you go.
That was the first season, but now it went way down, obviously.
All right. So, I mean, I think that the sadder thing is that, not everyone, people in publishing think that the way to revitalize the industry, whatever that means. I mean, I think largely publishing is just sort of going along fine. They're not making huge gains on a year-to-year basis, but, publishing is still around, and Random House, I'm sure, is making plenty of money. The idea that you need to reinvent the wheel with technology and it to be more like other forms of media, I don't know. It seems unnecessary to me. And I get that people have, money to dump into these projects to see, and at some point we're going to be proven wrong with our, derision towards these things, and one of them will take off. It's just 99 out of 100 are going to fail, and it sucks to watch that keep happening,
That was, and this is somewhat privileged information, but one of the on the Read 2.0 listserv, they mentioned the Oyster closing down, and someone said, "I wish there's some way that you could short sell bad startup ideas." It just seems like a cruel thing to send out to a bunch of people, but there it is. Although I like Kevin that worked for Oyster a lot.
So, okay. Do you think this cereal box thing is going to work?
No, I don't, because I think that they're trying to capture an audience that's served better by other media. There's not, if it were something that was unique and that there was a serial feature to something, serial features are compelling, but not for this sort of thing. I mean, I like Molly too, and I know that this is I don't know where their money's coming from or what the deal is, but it's not connected to anything. It's new startup. And I think that it'll probably last for a little while, and then it might just fade away. There is a large group of people who probably support it that are all writers that want to be part of that sort of thing. But I don't think that I think that people that have that desire, that like that serial storytelling, and that comes up, there's so many other platforms for it and so many other options that are better suited to it than this. But I also, the second it says swashbuckling, I give two shits. I'm done. I'm not going to go there. Period. So it's not for me.
It is interesting that they chose to do that sort of genre fiction as opposed to investigative reporting, which is actually one of the last places where serialized print writing does appear. I remember when this is kind of a diversion, but when Pain and Gain, the who was that? Michael Bay? No, that doesn't sound right. The movie with Mark Wahlberg and The Rock.
I'm trying to find.
They kidnap a guy. Tony Shalhoub. It's all based on a true story,
right.
And the reporting that was done on it was done not for the Miami Herald, but for the other Miami newspaper whose name I'm blanking on. And the guy, it was an 8-part investigation that was amazing. I read it all in one go. Mm-hmm. It's 30,000 words or something like that. But he had to break it up because it was just so dense. And they were running it once a week for 8 weeks or something like that. Right. That still exists. Why not do that in whatever?
In a serial form. I'm gonna make a guess as to why that's not, because of the sort of moral ethical reasons for doing nonfiction of that sort. That there's more chance for things that come up that are not true or that are problematic. And fact checking and doing all that kind of work on a nonfiction piece is a lot more difficult than being write a story about ghosts banging.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right, because this reporter, who I'm sorry I don't know his name, I'll look it up and we'll post it on the blog post for this podcast. But he had an entire staff, obviously, supporting him, of a newspaper, right. Helping him, do research and, you're talking about, fact check and edit and all that sort of thing. Whereas writing a story is, one person and then Molly help editing. There's no fact checking. There's no legal repercussions that could come about or anything like that. So, yes, you're right. The production cost is obviously much lower for fiction. So,
yeah,
that probably plays into it.
The author's name was Pete Collins.
Pete Collins, yes.
And it was a Michael Bay film.
It was. So, did he win an award, Pete Collins?
I don't know. I'm at the actual article. It's from the Miami Dade Times. Yeah,
I think he was nominated for a Pulitzer that year.
And Jesus Christ, that was 16 years ago, dude.
It was, yes.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah. These different era, I suppose. That newspaper might not even be around anymore.
Yeah, that's quite possible. Well, it's online, so it probably is.
Yeah. Well, so that's my take on. And like you said, Molly is very smart, and she thinks these things through, and
she's really good at connections.
Getting people involved, getting the right people involved. It's got a chance. I don't know. I'm not optimistic. Who are the writers? Are any of them known quantities, or are they just
not to me? But then again, like the first one is from. These are the names of the authors: Max Gladstone, Margaret Dunlap, Muir Lafferty, and Brian Francis Slattery.
None ring a bell.
Yeah, same here. I mean, the Gladstone, that sounds familiar, as a name, but I don't think from this person. But that's it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm more optimistic that I'll probably just keep subscribing to Scribd and probably read some of these books that I don't want to pay for. Or I don't see myself as paying for it by having a subscription. It feels free.
Right.
And that's fine by me in listening to stuff. Because the library becomes problematic if I can't get something. I get irritated.
Right.
So banned books.
Banned books.
Next week, huh?
It runs September 27th to October 3rd. And for those who are unaware, the American Library Association, ALA, does this every year to sort of highlight the books that are frequently requested to be banned, challenged, as they say. And, it's their mission to promote freedom of speech and access, basically, is the gist of this thing. And so they compile every year. How long have they been going back?
I don't know. It goes a long ways back here.
So there's background information from 2000 to 2009. So maybe they started in 2000?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was even before that, but...
Right. Anyway, so they compile this list of the most challenged books. And these are challenges made to libraries by customers, members who, would not like a book to be available in their library for whatever reason. Before we get to this, I would like to, just because I feel like these are things that are not talked about and appreciated quite so much these days in our modern era when, oh God, I'm blanking on his name. The publisher of Hustler, Larry Flint, is sort of seen as the champion of free speech. Way back when, in 1933, there is a United States versus one book called Ulysses. That is the actual case name. Was heard in the Southern District of New York, dealing with James Joyce's Ulysses, which was deemed obscene, or was challenged as obscene. So a little bit of background. What happened is the American editor who wanted to publish it. Okay, so Random House and their lawyer, Morris Ernst, arranged to have a copy shipped over from France. It's not the French language edition, but it was published first in France by Sylvia Beach 11 years before this, in 1922. And then so Random House and the lawyer agreed to have a copy shipped over to the U.S. and then have it formally seized by customs, on site. It was sort of a show thing. But this was so they could file this, they could deal with it in court as opposed to trying to do anything beyond that. So it was challenged, and here are the people who were arguing against it had 3 lines. The libelance case having 3 lines of attack. The work contained sexual titillation, especially Molly Bloom's soliloquy, and had quote-unquote unparlor-like language.
Yep.
2, it was blasphemous, particularly in the treatment of the Catholic Church. And 3, it brought to the surface coarse thoughts and desires that were usually repressed.
Yep. One of the lines that got challenged was testicle tightening.
Oh, Jesus. So Ernst argued that downplaying the novel's subversive or potentially offensive elements and emphasizing its artistic integrity and moral seriousness. The judge, who, God bless him, John Woolsey, ruled that Ulysses was not pornographic, that it was nowhere near the, quote, leer of the sensualist, and called it an astonishing success in its use of stream of consciousness technique. So
there's a wonderful, just not to interrupt you with that, but there's a wonderful book called The Most Dangerous Book, The Battle for James Joyce's Ulysses by Kevin Birmingham that's all about the banning and how this whole case played out and the whole history of Ulysses' troubles with obscenity and whatnot. It's awesome. It's a really interesting book.
So that was the first that sort of broke down the barrier. But then later on, you had 1959, Lady Chatterley's Lover, and shortly after, Tropic of Cancer in 1961, both of which were published by Barney Rossett at Grove Press, both of which he went to court using his own money. If you haven't seen the documentary Obscene, it's fucking amazing. Everyone should go watch it. It's all about Barney Rossett and what he did for publishing, and especially for publishing these types of books.
Yeah.
So at the time, there was a sort of, this is a little before Lenny Bruce, or maybe it was around the same time, but that, pornographic stuff was sort of being banned district by district. And where was Lenny Bruce's? San Francisco, I think? Where they wanted the courts, the local courts, the local officials all wanted it banned based on the quote unquote lack of redeeming social value. Mm-hmm. And Rossett went to court and proved that made the argument that both of these books had redeeming social value and were not obscene. And he sort of then broke down the second sort of wall, the second barrier that was, that era, which I think it's sort of typical. Like after a war, everyone tries to revert to these like base sort of good old home values or something like that. It's really weird that it keeps happening. Like the resurgence of the Republican Party after 9/11 and things like that. Anyway, different topic. Don't want to offend anyone. Won't get into a political discussion. But the point is that, the banned books have a long history in this country despite our First Amendment rights. And unfortunately, people still need to be defending the right to free speech and the right to free access to things that are written. And so this is why we are here talking about banned books. So we're both looking at this list, I assume, the 10 most frequently challenged books. What struck me is that a lot of these are, I'm guessing, sort of for young adults, and might it inspire the reason for the challenges in the first place, meaning that, a parent sees that their child was asked to read a book for class, looks it up, takes a look at it, on the kitchen table or whatever, and dislikes it, and then goes to whatever powers that be to complain about it. It's not unlike, the FCC getting complaints about South Park after it airs on Thursday nights, right?
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot. It's 10 books. They do the top 10 for each year. They are The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie, Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi, which is weird that this is on the list, but
that's one of the ones I had a question about. Yeah.
And Tango Makes Three by Justin Richardson and Peter Parnell,
which I really hope is just a threesome. It's just one long descriptive threesome.
The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, which, Jesus, that's insane. It's Perfectly Normal by Robbie Harris. Saga by Brian Vaughan and Fiona Staples. The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. A Stolen Life by J.C. Duggard. And Drama by Raina Telgemeier. Sorry, the type on my browser is really small. I wasn't sure that it was an RN or an M. Oh. So a lot of these, for example, Persepolis, reasons, gambling, offensive language, political viewpoint.
That's the one that stands out to me.
Political viewpoint. It doesn't even say that it's a anti-American viewpoint or anti-democratic viewpoint. It just says political viewpoint, as though no book should ever have a political viewpoint.
If it does, it's bannable.
It's also, in quotes there, graphic depictions. It's a graphic novel. It's going to have graphic depictions. Some of these are just...
They're unbelievable. Yep.
You pointed this out yesterday. We were texting about it. The unsuited for age group.
That's my favorite one because it shows up in ones that I don't think it makes sense for. Like I could see like, so it's perfectly normal. Says it's unsuited to age group because I believe it's a book. Looking this up about growing up and going through adolescence and body issue changes, things like that. And so I assume that someone read that in a class for a school, and their parent was like, "This is my child isn't ready for this. They should be 2 years older, 5 years older, whatever." Right? Okay, sort of. I don't agree with that, but that sort of makes sense. The one that I do not get is that in 2013, 50 Shades of Grey was the fourth most challenged book for reasons including unsuited to age group. What the fuck age group is that unsuited for that would be coming in contact with it?
It's also in...
I mean, is it just because it's in the library and anyone can check it out, therefore it's unsuitable?
I guess.
I just don't understand that one.
The Bluest Eye is in there. The Kite Runner has the same thing.
The Bluest Eye one has like a kid, but I mean, because the daughter gets raped by her dad or by her uncle or dad or whatever.
Yes.
Or impregnated by her dad. So that's disturbing, but yeah.
But the point is the age group that it was written for. I mean, this book was not published and marketed to teenagers when it was written.
Right.
Also, it's just crazy. That just seems crazy to me. Like the same thing with the Kite Runner. Like at no point when Riverhead was publishing that did they think, "Oh, hey, you know what we need to do? Make sure 12-year-olds read this." Like, yeah. It became an important book later on, much like Toni Morrison's, because it's canon now, and so it's taught and to high schoolers, of course, who are as it should be. That doesn't mean that it's unsuited to age group. It's this whole thing is very bizarre.
I know. Here's one thing to sort of explain it. So 1,000 out of the challenges from 2000 to 2009, there were 5,000 challenges, 5,099 challenges. 1,600 of them were in school libraries, 1,800 in classrooms, 1,200 in public libraries. So that's like the vast majority are the fact that I think that these books exist on the shelf in those libraries, that therefore it is unsuitable for the age group because someone may pick that book up. It's also amazing to me that people like put enough time into like complaining about these things when we know that people just don't read very much.
All told, that's actually not that many challenges.
Yeah, over like a 10-year period.
Yeah,
it's only 500 a year.
I love the footnote to this is 30 in academic libraries.
That's amazing.
The older you get, the more you learn, the more open-minded you become. There you go. Wait, can we go back to the 50 Shades of Grey one?
Yes.
Okay, the first reason listed, nudity. This is an illustrated book.
The Hunger Games is right there too, as number 5, and the reason is religious viewpoint.
Same thing with the political viewpoint. It's like, okay.
Well, I don't really I don't even know what that means in relation to that. I've only seen the first 2 movies, but like that's nothing I would have picked up on.
I think there's a little bit of a savior aspect going on, right?
Okay, I guess so. So like she is like the Jesus figure.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
This one, I mean, my guess is that people, who knows, but a wild hypothesis here, that people view this as a challenge to Christianity, one, or these are people who truly want like separation of church and state and therefore don't want anything religious in their public library. Which I hope they're also, challenging Siddhartha, I mean,
yeah, there's like, yeah. I don't know, it is very weird.
It's very weird.
It's funny which ones come and go. Like Gossip Girl is from a few years ago. And that Captain Underpants series.
That is, come on. I mean, it's like, it might as well be SpongeBob SquarePants. That's basically what it is. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's on there twice and then it vanishes. It's no longer important. That's gone. Gossip Girl's gone.
2012 was Beloved by Toni Morrison. So,
She's just always going to come up.
They're just targeting her random books.
Some of these are just totally random, too. In 2004, it goes to The Chocolate War, Fallen Angels, Arming America, The Origins of a National Gun Culture, Reasons Inaccurate. That's interesting.
Nicola Dimes is on here.
Yeah,
Barbara Ehrenreich. Huh.
It's very bizarre.
Color Purple?
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, well, next week, do you guys do anything at the store for that? Is this an issue? Are banned books an issue in other countries to the degree that they are with this here?
You mean...
Like in France, like with you guys in the French bookstore, no one cares, right? Like no one's... I mean...
No. I will say it is, back to school time, basically. It has been for the past month or so, and students have come in, looking for these books that they have to read in class. The things, because they're lycées, French high schools and middle schools in New York, of course. And the things they read at like 12 years old, I'm impressed. Like, there's clearly no concern about content. They just, the teachers assign it and the parents come in and say, hey, my daughter needs this and blah, blah, blah. And there's never any, like the teachers assign these things and there's no concern. I mean, that's it. I grew up in Connecticut, which fairly liberal. I remember reading A Clockwork Orange at like 14 years old.
Yeah.
There was no one in the class who couldn't read it because their parents complained or anything like that. Like, did not exist.
I had one guy in my class, in my high school, that got out of reading that and out of reading Catcher in the Rye and something else because he was extremely religious and went through the process of getting out of all of those things, because I think his family is basically like a weird cult, I don't know what the hell it was, but I remember he was the one kid who always had to leave and do a different project because it was too offensive to him, but no one else.
But again, this is fine. It's when his parents,
ban it for everyone else.
Right, exactly. When they start making a fuss that no one should be reading this, that's a different thing, I mean, part of the beauty of this country is that we allow for this sort of personal belief system to coexist with other personal belief systems. And, if you don't want to participate in something, we will make every reasonable accommodation to make that possible. And it's just when you start imposing your views on everyone else that things get ugly. And thus, the banned books week, and...
it's getting weird, too, with colleges.
Yeah.
Because of all the trigger warning stuff, various people I know here at the university that are teaching specifically more freshman writing courses, or maybe freshman and sophomore undergrad writing courses, but early ones, had a special meeting in which they had to talk about if you're going to teach something, include a book that has anything that could be considered potentially upsetting, violence, rape, abuse, sex, God knows what else. You have to provide a warning and allow people not to read it. So everything is these you're supposed to. I know various professors that have a sheet that explains these topics will be discussed in these books or will appear in these books. If you're not comfortable with that, you can just drop the class.
Now after having mentioned A Clockwork Orange, I wonder if it's still taught in high school.
I don't know. Maybe because of the language being.
Well, no. I mean, the violence is what
I know the violence, but because it's obfuscated a bit in some ways, or I don't know though. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not taught, but if it was, I could see that they get away with it because of the overall. I don't know.
But I can see in the light of school shootings and things like that,
right?
That they would just shy away from it altogether. I will say, I remember I went to Ohio State, big school, not particularly liberal, not particularly anything, just massive. And one of my last, senior year literature courses was very specifically European novels in the 18th century or something like that. Uh-huh. And I honestly don't remember what else I read in that class. But the teacher, the last book on the syllabus for the quarter, not semester, was Misfortunes of Virtue, which is the short version of Marquis de Sade's what became Justine, right? It's the 150-page version that he actually wrote in prison and then later expanded. Full of sex, obviously. And she told us at the beginning, she said, this book, it's on the syllabus. You don't have to read it. It won't be on the exam. So she saved it for last for that reason. Mm-hmm. But I heard that and I was like, what? Can I read that one first? Bring me the Marquis de Sade. So I don't know. There's a weird unintentional result, right? Like the more you tell someone they can't have something, the more they want it. So,
oh yeah, of course.
Especially, for a certain kind of person who's like, hungering for anything sort of outside the norm. But I think that the grounds that she offered was, she said, you might find it offensive, basically. Which, people might find it offensive. That's fair. That's fair.
We read Blood and Guts in high school in a college class, and there was no... I mean, maybe the professor said you might find this offensive. I don't really remember that part of it. I just remember that everyone read it, and there was like me and one other guy who liked it, and everyone else just hated it and found it unreadable and disturbing.
I can't imagine, like, in college, especially at a state school, sort of anyone getting upset about anything.
I don't know that they're upset. They're just like, this doesn't make sense to me. Therefore, it sucks. I think that's generally the response of most people to like most things. If it's not immediately apparent, it's like, this is dumb. This is too much work. I don't get it.
People.
How was the Brooklyn Book Festival?
I was only at the actual festival part for maybe an hour. Saw, the friends who work in publishing and some people like that. And then my panel was the last time slot of the day. Went pretty well, I think. Slowed down a little by the, necessity, the need for interpreters for two of the authors. But right. I was unsure if they were going to sort of get along and talk to each other. I mean, they come from three very different backgrounds and cover three very different subjects. But, I think it worked. Not really sure. But I think it went well. And cool. I think everyone was probably very impressed, if that's the right word, or awed by Fiston Mwanza Mujila, who mm-hmm. read is quite an understatement. Shouted his portion of the reading like a poetry, like a loud poetry jazz sort of thing. It was something to behold. I'll say that.
Huh. That sounds pretty cool.
So whoever's seeing him in the next, I don't know how many events they have, 8, I want to say. I know he's in Houston next week at Brazos. All right, we're recording this on the 22nd. I think he's in Houston some point the week of the 27th. So you're in for a treat, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. This has been like the craziest time for all these events because we had all of our Naya's events kick off next week, I believe. But Andres Newman just went through all of his events and at Brazos and Powell's and Chicago and the Brooklyn Book Festival. And I keep seeing all these things on Twitter about everyone else who's reading around these times too, and it's crazy.
It is crazy. But one last thing I wanted to say about Brooklyn, it is massive now. It is a huge book festival.
That's what it sounded like, and that's what it looks like from online. I didn't go. Kaya went in my place. And was there. I think you guys, you saw her there.
I did. Yeah.
Which, this is a side. No, I'll tell you separately. I'll tell you separately when we're not recording at the end. But remind me to tell you something about that. But she said it was pretty huge. She sold a lot of books too, a decent number.
Everyone seemed to be selling a lot of books. It's gotten so big that they used to have a corner set aside for children's books and then children's events. Mm-hmm. That because they have so much of both children's and adult publishing, they've given the children's over to a separate day. So that's on Saturday now.
Oh, wow.
A slightly shorter day. I think 10 to 4 is what someone told me. And then Sunday is just all adults in the space. It's because Borough Hall is only so big. So, right. They can only accommodate so much on any one day. So very big. 10-year anniversary this year. There was I saw Jonathan Lethem get his Bobby? I kept meaning to look up what that stands for, but I feel like it stands for Best of Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
But he got the award this year. Paul Auster's gotten it, and I forget who else.
Huh. I know that he
very oddly.
Our author Georgy Gospodinov was there, and he beat Jonathan at ping pong as part of the ping pong competition last night.
I did hear that was happening.
I have to say, like, I play some ping pong, and I'm not terrible, but we played with Andres Newman when he was here, and holy shit, like, he's the best ping pong player I've ever seen. Like, he was unbelievably good. I think I don't know, I know that Jeff Dyer won that competition and is, like, hardcore, but I'd like to see a matchup between the two of them. So Andres was phenomenal. We had this great situation, which you might appreciate. We're at the bar in town that has a ping pong table. Their rackets that they have, or their paddles, are just disastrous because they're old and they're like taped together and missing like the padding. And we were there, and there were these guys who had brought their own paddles that were all like fancy and all that kind of stuff. And they wanted to play, but they wouldn't let Andres use one of their nice normal paddles. So he had to use like one that's like totally ripped apart, and he just made them look foolish the whole way. He won like 21-7. Like, it was not even remotely close, which made me feel pretty good for him.
Glad to hear it.
I like when you can show up assholes.
That was our ping pong interlude for the podcast.
We got that. Did you want to read, by the way, Margaret Carson's email about?
Oh God, I keep forgetting that.
Okay,
yeah.
I can read it. I've got it right in front of me.
Oh, good, because it's a really good email.
Okay, so this is from Margaret Carson, who's a translator. She's translated Sergio Shafak for us, My Two Worlds, and this is her full email. It's about book distribution in Latin America and Spain. It says, "Hi, Chad."
Which goes back a few podcasts.
I guess just one though. It's then from number 102. So I think I think we last week was 103, I believe, and this is 104. So not too far back. Okay. Hi, Chad. Hi, Tom. Great podcast. Just wanted to make a few comments on the question of book distribution between countries in the Spanish-speaking world. Chad, you were mostly talking about this. You may be right that it's much better than in the Arab-speaking world. I can't compare. But my understanding, and I'm not an industry expert, but many Latin Americans say this, is that it's difficult for Latin American authors to read each other's books unless they're published in Spain. An author who's published in, say, Peru will have a better chance at increasing his or her readership in the Spanish-speaking world if the book comes out in Spain. Not only will there be additional Spanish Peninsula readers, but the book can be exported to different Latin American countries. Distribution networks from Spain to Latin America are much better developed than they are between different Latin American countries. Books don't travel well between, say, Colombia and Argentina or Chile and Venezuela. However, the downside is the cost of the book imported from Spain is much higher than those published locally, and there are often special tariffs or protectionist measures. I believe that's the case in Argentina. That's my basic understanding of the market. The key to having a successful career across the Spanish-speaking literary world is to get your books picked up by a Spanish publisher. There's greater visibility, and also your chances of being translated into other languages increases. And I believe there's a parallel in the Francophone literary market. To have the best distribution across the French-speaking world, an author wants to be published in France. I also want to mention that Spanish authors are only those authors who are of Spanish nationality. Spanish language authors is more inclusive. Latin American authors will be surprised and perhaps upset to hear themselves referred to as Spanish authors. Have a great vacation. Look forward to your next season of podcasts. That's Margaret. The tariff and the cost thing is the thing that I know from being in Buenos Aires, where like a book published in Spain that had been imported there was like the equivalent of like a 40 American dollars. Like it was just astronomically expensive for a lot of books that had been published in Spain and brought into the country because of those taxes and because of all the things that they do. But the rest of that jives with things I've heard before too.
And just to chime in on the French thing, she is right. I mean, it's 100% true that you don't really start getting global recognition. For example, like a Congolese writer is not going to be, known most likely by a Haitian writer until that book is published in France.
Right.
You have to go through France. That's generally the way it works. And oddly, in some certain French-speaking Francophone countries, even locally, the writer won't really be sort of treasured and, something people are really, excited about or well, even they know about it until it comes out in a French edition. Like if a book is published in French in Morocco, they'll print 500 copies. But when it gets published in France and then imported to Morocco, suddenly people care about it. It's like this weird, it's just a measure. It's like getting published by a very small press in the U.S. and then getting picked up by Random House. Your reach is going to grow. That's just how it works.
Man, yeah. I don't have anything else to add to that except that I agree with what she's saying, and this does make a lot of sense and explains. I don't remember what our conversation was about this, but whatever it was, this is a good supplement to it.
Yes, and thank you, Margaret, for sending that in. I think we were just talking about the situation in Latin America.
Okay,
but I can't remember exactly what.
Can't either. So if I said something wrong, that's probably my fault. The other thing that I wanted to it's not really a surprise, but that I just found interesting because I thought of it yesterday when we were talking about topics, is that on Saturday, we're recording this again on the 22nd, I guess. On Saturday is my 40th birthday, so I decided to do one of those dumb things and look back at like what books were on the bestseller list the week that I was born. And this is sort of surprising. I was going to try and find the one from this week just to see what the difference is. But here are the top 10 books from September 28th, 1975. Ragtime by E.L. Doctorow, Looking for Mr. Goodbar by Judith Rosner, Shogun by James Clavell, how do you say his name? The Great Train Robbery by Michael Crichton, The Money Changers by Arthur Haley, Circus by Alistair MacLean, The Eagle Has Landed by Jack Higgins, Humboldt's Gift by Saul Bellow, Centennial by James Michener, and Cockpit by Jerzy Kosinski. Which seems, I don't even know if I have anything to say about it, but it seems kind of wild.
It's a very strange collection of books.
That it is. And I looked back to see what the number one song was, which I will have them it be the song of this. It was I'm Sorry by John Denver.
Oh. What a nice song.
I guess so. It's things. Here's the just as a comparison, the fiction list now. So that has Doctorow, it has Jerzy Kosinski, Saul Bellow. Those are pretty, reputable people. Today, the bestseller list is, let me just go to the hardcover fiction, is Make Me by Lee Child, Girl in the Spider's Web by whatever, David Lagerkrantz, but whatever, Ghost of the Watchman by Harper Lee, The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins, Star Wars Aftermath by Chuck Wendig, Purity by Jonathan Franzen, All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, X by Sue Grafton, 2 Years, 8 Months, and 28 Nights by Salman Rushdie, and Undercover by Danielle Steele.
I'm glad Danielle Steele made that list.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Jackie Collins died.
I know, and so did Carmen Balcells. Speaking of the Spanish literature and getting authors international reputation, she was very influential in getting a lot of people published and throughout the world. So both of them. I mean, I guess, I don't know, I like Carmen Balcells probably better than Jackie Collins, but,
Probably.
Probably just a touch.
I will say I was at the gala thing for the Brooklyn Book Festival when that New York Times alert came through about Jackie Collins. And I'm sitting with 6 or 8 people, and I, said aloud that, oh my God, Jackie Collins died. To a person, they all said, who?
Are you serious?
Yeah. To be fair, I don't think any of them have ever worked in a bookstore, which I don't know that I would know who she was if I hadn't worked in a bookstore. So,
really, I don't know. I mean, she was a pretty.
She had someone in the 80s, that's for sure. She was just everywhere, right?
Yeah, she's just like a known quantity. It seems like just one of those things that if you're alive and aware that things are happening in the world. But then again, I don't know. These kids these days know nothing.
It's true.
They're so young and so know nothing. Yeah, we should end on that note. Before you just trail off into existential gloom.
I trail off every day.
Yeah, that's how the world is. Yeah. Anyways, I don't think I have anything else to add. No, oh, wait, yeah, we're just going to do our rants and raves, but is there any book that you want to recommend or that you've been reading?
Well, yeah, I was going to recommend as my rave, just go read Tram 83. I don't think it's for everyone. I also will say that it takes some time to get used to because of the flow. But it is a fun book, and it's very, I think we've talked about this before, like, it's very anti-African. It's very, it goes against the grain of what generally gets published in the US and in Europe from Africa, in that, there are no huts, there are no, savannas or anything like that. It's very much a big city book. It's very dirty. It doesn't blatantly address all of the normal sort of topics that come up. It does it in a very different way entirely. And I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it took me, 20, 30 pages to get into it. But once I did, I found myself really enjoying it. So go out and read it. It's on sale now. I believe it came out last week officially. Tram 83, Fiston Mwanza Mujila.
Yep. I want to read that, but the book that I'm going to read next from Deep Vellum is the Leela Chidori book Home. She's an Indonesian author, and this book doesn't come out until October, so a little bit ahead of time, but nevertheless. I'm also 50 pages away from being done with the second volume of the Knausgaard book of my struggle.
Oh?
And I still think A Time for Everything is superior, but I do like coming up with arguments as I read this as to why people who say, like, nothing happens, it's boring, it's unreadable, why that's not an accurate portrayal of what's happening or how the book works. And I actually like it better than the first one.
I have not read any of them. I've heard that they get better and better and better as it goes on. I don't know why I've been so averse.
I was going to just avoid it because of all the hype, and because it feels like something that it's one of those things that every Brooklyn writer probably gloms onto to some degree, and that bugs me. But because we're going to probably include it in this book that Steve and I are working on, I thought I should just catch up finally and be able to have a more informed opinion than just having read the novel. Time for Everything, and then the first volume of it. The next two volumes, I believe, go back in time. So 3 is his early childhood, and 4 is teenage years. So it'll be interesting how that structure works. But the structure of the books is what's interesting. The line by line stuff is it's very much here's a everyday person who is not special in any particular way, other than that he's a writer capable of being a writer. But it's all that kind of daily life and what you do with that, and how to make that not so what I'm looking for have some meaning sounds wrong, but what that's like and what that is when it's not overly glorified and not overly made into and crafted into some particularly high plotted story. So it ends up with this interesting, to me, sort of structure. It's almost like a fugue where things go back in time and sort of fill in gaps. And it's not like a stream of consciousness thing, but there is this sort of connection in that the overarching structures, which are very glacial in their movements and in their juxtapositions, but that's the real part that I like about this. And the fact that there are various times where it's fairly honest, very honest in a way that is uncomfortable, that most writers wouldn't write about themselves. At the same time, I do I've got on a rant this weekend about too many books that have first-person narrators that you're supposed to like, and that's annoying to me as a general trend. But this one, I guess, does fit into that. Although I don't know that you really like him, but it is just basically his, everything that happens to him. And the beginning sequence of the second book with him and his 3 kids at a fairground or on a little vacation, and all of the kind of keeping track of the kid. It goes on for 25 pages, keeping track of where the kids are, making sure they have their food. One of them's screaming, one of them's off here. All that kind of stuff is really what it's like to have kids. And that strikes a little bit. I find that sort of interesting. That's my half-hearted attempt to defend my struggle.
I don't think it needs defending, but you did just sell it really well.
Yeah, so I'm going to say I gotta catch up on that and the Ferrante books.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get to those anytime soon. I'm reading right now. I don't know if I told you this. Jean-Patrick Manchette, my favorite French noir writer from the 60s, 70s. I recently discovered at the bookstore, just sort of while shelving books. I missed it come in. on the receiving end. Kept a journal, and it's a 2-volume. Each volume takes up about 8 years, and each volume is about 900 pages.
My God.
His his journal entries from, the years covered. And sometimes he writes every day, and sometimes it's like once every 2 weeks. I find him just fascinating. I also really like his writing and really like his sort of take on society in general. And he's got a lot of social critique worked into his books that comes through in the journal entries, but they're also very much about like his own struggles to make money and be happy and that sort of thing. It's a lot like, I don't think such a thing exists, or maybe I'm wrong, but like if Philip K. Dick had kept a journal, right? Like, I think they sort of exist.
Aside from the exegesis,
right? Like, because I think they sort of existed in the same way, where they were selling books and doing okay, but they definitely had a lot of thoughts about the world, and had to put them somewhere that couldn't be in the genre-specific sort of books that they were writing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Although I will say, I was talking to someone, and they're like, "Oh, well, I wonder what he had to say about May '68." So I haven't got there yet. So I skipped ahead. Nothing. He had nothing to say.
Just wow.
I was shocked. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I will figure out exactly why that is when I do get to that point, and maybe he references it later. But yeah, he basically just, his journal entry is a rundown of the events that had taken place. It's written at the end of May, and at the very end, there's like an incomplete sentence fragment that just says pre-revolutionary conditions.
Oh,
that's it. So I don't know. There's something going on there. I will. I'm very intrigued to keep reading. That's for sure.
That sounds pretty cool. I did start listening to. Have you heard of Ben Metcalf's Against the Country?
No, but I know Ben Metcalf. What is this?
It's a novel of his that came out in January. I think it's his first novel.
Is it? What did he do beforehand?
I
somewhere.
do not know. This is his first novel. Let me see if there's a bio thing that I can find really quick. He was born in Illinois, and then his writing has appeared in Baffler, Harper's, Best American Essays, taught at Columbia, joined the Lapham's Quarterly editorial board.
Maybe that's
maybe from there.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. It's the goal setup is that the narrator is born in Illinois, and they moved to like rural Virginia, and it's basically an extended attack on like the idea that living out in the country is like good for you and is like the American way. And so it's pretty funny so far. It's very like sort of reminiscent, not of like a Faulkner, but of like the Southern Gothic sort of stuff, but like written in a weird, almost affected way. That so far I've only listened to like 30 minutes of it, so I shouldn't say much more than that. But it's pretty entertaining, and I like this idea of like attacking the country.
Yes,
filled with failure and shit.
We did just spend 20 minutes earlier in the podcast bashing everyone who challenges books at the library.
Yeah, so good enough. Am I supposed to have a rant?
No, I think we're good.
I don't think I have one this week. Yeah, nothing to rant against.
Nothing to rant against.
I did. Maybe next podcast. In fact, I can share some of this information. But I am getting through all the data on how many male authors are translated and female authors are translated, and it's pretty bleak. In every way. So I can tell you this, from the years 2008 through 2014, out of all the works of fiction published in translation, 26% were written by women.
That's pretty low.
That's pretty low. Like
pretty embarrassingly low.
Like 35, you'd be like, that's bad. 35 is bad. 26 is remarkably bad. And you'd think like for poetry, maybe that would be different. It's 29% for poetry.
Oof.
Also, for translators, male translators versus female translators, for both fiction and poetry, 40% of these books were translated by female translators, which surprised me because I thought that would be higher.
Yes, I thought that would be higher too. At the same time, it's not as low as 26.
Not as low as 26. Brutal. So now I'm breaking it down by country, which I think I thought I had found. I guess this would be my rant: is that fuck Afghanistan for screwing up my thing. I thought I had found a way to like run a little script that would do all this for me, but to test it, the first country alphabetically that has a book out is Afghanistan, and it produced a report in which it said there are 4 books that were translated all by men. So it's like, oh, come on. Now I don't even know if my formula works. Like I can't tell because I need one that has a woman. Like I need to know that it's capturing both things. So
Right.
Afghanistan is a pure 100%. Not going to find an Afghani female writer in English right now. So at least not one from the past 7 years.
Can I ask if there's if one of the criteria you're sort of breaking these numbers down to is whether or not the author was living at the time?
No, I don't know how I would do that. And that would require, because there are...
How many books are we talking?
Yeah, that's what I'm just going to tell you. 3,042. And I don't know... It would be very complicated. Because what if someone died in between the publication of the book in French, say, and its publication in English? To count them as living or dead.
Well, I want to... Yes. Well, my feeling is that a lot of translated books in general are people who are dead. And I wonder if it's worse for women than it is for men. More of them are dead than there are for women.
I don't know. I mean, that would be a lot of research for someone to do to pick out, like, I mean, you just have to, I guess, do Wikipedia for every single one of the authors, or just find like their death date,
right?
If they're living or dead, and then just mark that. But that would be to get my interns to go through this. Was made me feel kind of bad.
Perhaps
it's a lot of work.
Perhaps we have a listener out there who is a college student who could perhaps use this information in a paper or, discussion of some kind for class. And if they're listening and want to volunteer to help with the data breakdown in general and with adding that, please email us. That would be great.
Yeah, that would be very good. But other than that, I've got nothing left. So.
All right.
Oh, okay. So Nate, you can stop the podcast here. Here's the thing I was going to tell you. So last night.
Sorry if I took something for granted.